Oh, good morning, world. Here we are again, semi-live from Vancouver Island. Bone-chilling day out there. Bone-chilling meaning it just cuts through you like a knife. Don't know, it's so weird, isn't it? I've got a friend of mine who owns a fishing lodge where I tie up, a couple of us tie up our boats, 3 of us tie up our boats, and he's trying to retire, but he's got beat up knees, and it's a steep walk down to the dock every day. And by the end of the guide season, he's just using pain every day. And then they go down to Mexico, and I think they just left now to go down there, and then they guide for marlin and tuna and everything in Cabo. And he said that almost instantly the pain in his knees goes away once he leaves this climate and hits Mexico. And then it comes right back when he comes back. Isn't it bizarre how the weather affects us? Different weather. Very bizarre. Like after this last trip I just did, excuse me, it got pretty cold there a few times, but it's just different. You know, it's minus 18, 20. I don't care. I'm still hunting all day in it. Sitting there under a tree for a while. And then I come home and it's 3 degrees and it's like, oh my God, it's cold. It's nasty. It's weird. Now, what's going on today? Quite a bit. I hit the recent emails today, so guaranteed none of these have been heard. And what else? I had a shitty sleep last night, don't know why, and I hit some podcasts. I don't remember the name of it right now, but I'm going to go into my history and find it again. And this is now an independent journalist from Germany that if I could, I would make every single person in the world listen to it. There's nothing new in it for me, but the way she delivers is, she needs to be heard no matter what side of the fence you sit on. Even if you think you know what's up and you possibly might not, there's a possibility for every single one of us, obviously. Gosh, if I can just somehow get everybody to listen to this woman speak. And I remember thinking before, earlier, when it comes to the child trafficking, missing kids and shit, how do you get everybody here to listen, for crying out loud? Just listen to it for a minute, all right? You got an hour, half an hour, listen. Even though it makes you uncomfortable. Otherwise, how do you advance with knowledge? How do you advance in life if you don't do things or don't listen things? Because they make you feel uncomfortable. Well, then you just sit there without going anywhere. It's a speed bump in life, right? Feeling like that. But if I can pull some time, you know what I think I might do? I'll get on here, I'll share a whole bunch of voices, and then we'll click that video and I'll play it right here next to me. And we'll watch it together. How's that? Because then once I already have a bunch of you in the house here listening, you just might sit here with me and listen to her. Just listen to her. You don't have to agree with her. But if you got it in you to disagree with her, you better do your diligence and figure shit out and prove somebody wrong too, right? It's very, very important. I'll put up a link to that after this. What I think I might do if I get time sometime is we'll sit here together and watch it. Once I get the internet back in here. I ordered the new cable. I think I screwed the cable out. Now, what do we got? Did I read this? No, I didn't. Here we go. Looks like a long one. Not a bad time in the morning to crack open the long ones. That's good. Here we go. My experiences up to this point is the title of this email. Hello, Steve and the people around the world in the How to Hunt family. Thank you for everything you do for this community of people. I've been on here listening since the beginning. I feel like I have a better understanding on what more to pay attention to when out in the woods than I wish to because of all of you, lol. I'm horrible at writing stories, so I'll do my best, hopefully not annoying anyone. The dog's chewing her bone down there. I grew up in northern lower Michigan. I was fortunate enough to grow up surrounded by hundreds of acres of mature hardwood maple trees mixed with other trees big whitetails love. I have two older brothers. One was out of the house much older, but my middle brother and I would roam the woods quite often, either on foot, pedal bike, or dirt bike, oftentimes wielding a shotgun or BB guns. But I would say the majority of the time I was by myself. There's this one particular place out of hundreds of acres that it didn't matter what time of day it was, alone or not, when I rode through there. It always felt like something was chasing me on my dirt bike. Ew. You could just feel it right behind me. That little 1980 YZ80 was wide open through there most times. When I started to bow hunt at 12 years old, I would have been 1990. I found most of the traffic runways were in the vicinity of that spot that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but probably a couple hundred yards from there. So me being me, set up a tree stand. And growing up with two older brothers, it was their daily thing to try to scare me to death. So I think I got a little bit numb to fear. I'm almost certain I could write a book. And besides that, I never really had a reason to be scared, just was. I hunted pretty regular, most evenings, because of school at that age. Oh, sorry. I hunted pretty regular most evenings because of school at that age. I was crazy fortunate to usually always shoot 1.8-point older mature whitetail every year that I hunted. And I did the majority of the work myself. Parents were divorced, mom worked, so I was a savage kid running through the woods learning how to hunt. Sounds like I'm reading my story. One particular strange thing that happened at the tree stand was when I came out to go into the tree. There was a round section about 30 yards in diameter that was covered in blood. Holy, 30 yards in diameter covered in blood. That's a violent happening. All the ferns and leaves were pushed down and soaked. I decided not to hunt that evening, or that stand for a while after that. I do not know what did it. I set up a ground blind that my dad had given me on the edge of some new growth, and on a fairly steep hill about 100 yards from the tree stand. It was an old canvas, with real metal poles camouflaged with Velcro windows. While sitting there on my milk crate, I knew to play the wind which way to set up. I had a deer blow at me from a direction that it should not have. It was getting to be dusk. The sun was still visible through some of the trees, just really low. In this area that I hunt, it's usually multiple deer every night, no matter the condition, but on this night, it was pretty quiet. Besides that deer that had blew at me, maybe 10 minutes later in the same direction, I heard what I thought sounded like a baby deer screaming in distress. Listening and watching straight out in front of me, approximately 45 yards, cutting diagonal across this hill away from me, I could still hear what at the time I thought was a fawn because of the size comparison against this, what I thought was a black bear with the deer stuffed under its armpit, not over its shoulder. Like I had heard others say here, I could only see what I'm guessing now was mid-waist and upper body, black hair. I did not see a face either because of the angle it came out of the trees. I never heard a noise besides that deer. There was no smell. I'm not sure, maybe it never knew I was there. I tried rationalizing it, why it was upright, and come to the conclusion that it may have been just adjusting its kill as it carried it. But like I said, I was young and out there by myself. It's a way back behind the house. I froze and could not get out of my blind, even at dark. I sat there for quite a while, maybe half an hour in the pitch dark. Ooh. Finally, I see headlights coming up to the 2-track. They pulled up close to the blind. I just jumped, through the window and sprinted the rest of the way to the headlights. It was my stepfather. I was wondering what was going on, why I was back there so long. I told him what happened, and he just told me that bears were hibernating at that time. I guess I kind of knew that at the time, but once he told me that, it hit. So, being the kid I was, I didn't go back there for at least 2 days before I hunted again. LOL. Wow, 2 whole days. Just kidding, man. I ended up shooting a buck out of that pop-up blind with no other issues. Well, that's good. At least your spot doesn't get absolutely trashed, right? And that would be it for that season. I can't remember if it was the following year or a few years after the sighting, I set that ground blind up again. Thought my mother would like to come out and watch some of the deer while I hunted. Mom's an animal lover. We call her Mother Nature, so I had to promise not to shoot anything unless it was a really mature deer. But no mama deer, she said. I agreed. It was great having someone way out there with me. We got to watch several different bucks come through, but nothing worth shooting. Finally, it got dark and it was time to start the journey home, which on foot is about 3/4 of a mile walking on the 2-track. This is known for one of the highest points in Lower Michigan, with some pretty steep elevation changes on this walk back. The first few feet out of the blind seemed kind of quiet, but I wasn't really focused on anything particular. As we got into some of the thicker part of the forest for some reason, we stopped walking at the same time, and that's when we realized something was walking with us. 10 to 12 feet into the darkness over the cliff, to our right. I, of course, thought probably a porcupine, a raccoon, something along those lines. I've never used lights walking out of the woods. My older brother told me that the boogeyman would see me easier, so I let my eyes adjust. But I did bring one along for tracking purposes, and I checked the bank, and there was nothing there. We proceeded on, and we decided to start checking to see if there is actually something following our steps as we step. And sure enough, about 3 times in a row, within 40 feet, we got it to screw up and take that extra step. Said so many people in the same situation. Now we are really convinced something or someone is pacing us on 2 feet just into the bushes, but the terrain is not walkable in some of these places. It's too steep right next to the road, where it was cut, and other brush and branches. Yet keep up with our fast pace on solid ground. My mother seemed a little bit concerned, but she, like me, not a lot fazed us in the woods. We stopped. I picked up some large stones and started throwing them and yelling to get the you-know-what out of there or come out and face me. Nothing, just silence. Nothing there when I shined the light again. At this point, we're about 100 yards from the house. I could see one of the yard lights shining through the branches. Feeling somewhat relieved, we were on the home stretch, and then there was a big branch that broke, and Mom took off running, which in turn I took off running, but was much faster than my mother. I probably beat her by 50 yards back to the house. Can you believe that? We were both laughing the entire time, so hard it was hard to run. We still laugh telling that story of being chased by Sasquatch and laughing about it. Mom says I was setting her up because she was slower and she was the bait. Yeah, well, Mom deserted her baby. My mom had seen the red glowing eyes on 2 separate occasions a few years apart back on that property as well after dark, and experiencing the silence, she has told me. We lived in a trailer up in the woods, quite a ways off the road, and there would be some bumps on the side sometimes at night. Friends of mine that would stay the night growing up would get pretty scared because right out my bedroom window was forest. A few of them had said in the middle of the night that something was looking in my bedroom window at them. But like I said, we did not know about Sabe really at that age, just knew it was something. Just tell them to go back to sleep and close the blinds. My brother has invited a friend to bow hunt with him on my mother and stepfather's property. It goes back quite a ways, all hardwoods, really thick, really hilly. It borders the property where I had my sighting years ago. My brother's hunting partner did not believe in anything like Sasquatch or Dogman, and one evening he was hunting, and he said it sounded like something with the lungs of a freight train roared at him in charged, snapping small trees, sounding like a logging truck was coming to run him over. And the fear He left the woods that day and was really shook up and scared. That was a few years ago. I'm not sure if he's made it back out to hunt again or not, but at least we know he was warned, or at least told about what could be. Yeah, that's a rude awakening, isn't it? How's that bone, Adventure Dog? Is that a good one? Yeah, is that a good bone? Nothing better than happiness, right? Happy pets, happy family, happy everything. As long as everybody's happy. That was, for the most part, where I grew up. Most of my experiences that I know of. No one was taught about those things, really, back then. I got married, stayed in the area, built a home a few miles away. Without giving every little detail, within the last 10 years, we had screams off in the distance on quiet nights. We use an outdoor boiler fired by wood. And there's times in those really cold nights where I would have to get up in the middle of the night and put wood on the stove. Sometimes the chunks are frozen down in the snow and ice, so I used a sledgehammer to bust loose. One evening about 3 a.m., really quiet, cold, 10 below, crunchy kind of night. Hold on. No one would be out there, but from the swamp behind me when I was hitting, it was not an echo. It was too delayed, but I got knocked back. One other time in the summer, there's a large pond out behind our house, and there was a constant, huge splashing I could hear for hundreds of yards away. It sounded like boulders being thrown in. This happened in my front yard. I live 300 feet off the road in a stand of red pines. We do get owls quite often, one or two, and there's times we will have the screen doors open in the evenings to let the breeze through. When we could hear what sounded like 3 or 4 owls out in the front yard in the trees. Then sounded like 4 or 5 more joined in. Then more. Then more. It was annoyingly, obnoxiously loud and faded off into coyote howls. My wife thought it was pretty unique. She'd never heard the owls like that before, which it just didn't sound right, so she got her phone and recorded. Once we played it back with all that racket, which sounded like 30 or 40 at the same time, there's only 1 or 2 that were recorded. Crazy. And the coyote vocals did not get picked up either. Whoa! What's up with that one? Holy shit! Alright, I get the visual thing, how they can manipulate the visual thing, but holy crapola. Our electronics will not record some of the sounds. That is crazy. But in a way, that almost makes sense too, because remember, for me, when I first sort of became aware of this factor was when my friend, who has a degree in psychology, was hunting with me, and he heard what he described as a sledgehammer beating on a tree coming from where I was supposed to be retrieving the quad, and I didn't hear shit. How the hell do you do that? How do you do that? How do you manipulate human beings' ears, let alone their eyeballs? Holy shit. That's wild. Obviously that affected me reading that one. Wow. Latest and most recent, 2024 being archery season. My son was out bow hunting in a raised blind, which typically has pretty good movement. A lot of animals, at least, even if you don't see deer, you've got something to look at. He had messaged me a few times from the stand telling me he hasn't seen a bird and was ready to leave. But I told him to sit until dark, past dark. I'd walk back and walk him out. I just purchased, maybe a month before, a thermal imaging scope for my rifle, coyote hunting rig. And I thought, well, I'll carry that so I can make sure I'm not to spook anything, just in case I can back off and wait. I scanned the area and did not see a sign of life, so I proceeded back. And once I got to my son, I told him to climb down. As I stood there, I could hear branches close by snapping and breaking. But I was focused on helping grab a few of his things from him as he climbed down. And once he was on the ground, I raised my gun to scan, and the scope would not work. Fully charged, would not power up as we stood there. Worked perfectly when I got home. How many times we heard that shit going down with cameras? Amazing. I could see the branches on the ground about 10 feet from us move. Then there was a darn thing. Then there was not a darn thing there again. Bringing back childhood memories, I knew what was up. I thought my son was going to try to climb into my coat with me. The way my brain works is I told my son, "You've been out here for 3 hours by yourself. Obviously with the silence and everything else, it's been here with you. If it wanted you, you would have been gone." So I just kind of told him to leave us alone because you're scaring my son. And we walked out. But it did the same thing. Followed us a few feet to our right until we got into the open field. Then I'm not sure. Never heard it again. One previous thing happened that I forget about sometimes, going back to the pesky wood stove outside. And oftentimes around 9 o'clock you have to bundle up and go out. Throw some wood in it for the night. I came out of the house into my garage. Put on my wood clothes that smell like smoke. Made it to the back door of the garage that leads towards the wood stove. When I went to reach for the door handle, the fear of all fear went through me like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. Like you will die if you go out that door fear. There's nothing that should have scared me. There was no noise, no smell, just fear from nowhere. I did not go out and do the wood stove that night. I knew I was going to have to tangle with some coals in the morning, but that water would stay warm enough to give me heat through the night. Of course, as I write this, I can remember other little things that pop up, but not really that important. But maybe some of this will help others with similar experiences. The reason they don't scare me is because the way I look at things. If they wanted me, they could have me, not willingly, of course, but they've never scared me or threatened me either. The fear I experienced in the garage, I can't say what caused that. If I had that fear trying to enter the woods, then I would not be going. God bless you all, and thank you. Kurt from Tustin, Michigan. Kurt, holy shit. And I know I'm speaking for everyone. We absolutely appreciate your generous contribution here. Big time. Thank you so much. Emails back anytime. Anytime. Alright, so what's going on? Is there some kind of a thin chunk of veil around that property? Right? Something else slip in and come across? Something else slip over to this side? That normally the opening was guarded by somebody or something that keeps all that shit at bay from us? Or from joining them over here? Right? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe, possibly, right? Maybe that one time out of how many years something dark managed to come through. And somebody warned you. Maybe. I don't know. You know, you just, when you're trying to make sense of something we've been raised to believe is all folklore, it's tough. It's tough on the simple human mind, right? But, okay, I get it. I've seen it firsthand. Something out there can manipulate us. Manipulate what we hear or don't hear. Individuals in the same place. That is absolutely crazy. Right? As far as I'm concerned, for me, it's fact. Lived it. Witnessed it with somebody I trust in my life. Got it. But how the hell do you allow so much of a noise enter an audio recorder, but it will not record the other abnormally loud, crazy-ass sounds that the human being holding the recorder is hearing clearly? Holy frickin' mind blow up, right? Anybody else have that experience? Recording this crazy-ass sound, when you played it back, it only played little tidbits of what you were hearing. And didn't kill the batteries. And then next thing you know, the night scope batteries are dead and they come back to life when you get home. That's been reported so many times around the globe, it's insane. Now, they're just a monkey. They're just a gorilla. You know, as we go along, we're this far in our journey together here. Now can you see back in the day how I'd lash out so much at all those so-called big-name douchebags that were intent on keeping all of you stuck at go? Right? You gotta be picking up what I'm putting down by now. The frustration I had, clearly knowing for years before I came out publicly, as part of my motivation to come out publicly was these morons who've been on Discovery Channel and all these TV shows and interviews coming out of their yin-yang and selling you guys footprints at all the conventions. And meanwhile, they're just sleazy, lying sons o' bitches assisting in all of us remaining dumb as sticks. What an evil, dark thing to do. Right? At this stage of the game, following along, don't you agree? How dark and sinister that is? Right? Pricks. Whatever. Okay, I'll stop. They've been kicked to the curb successfully. Later, losers. You lying, dark sons of bitches. Alright, here we go. Moving along. Why are they killing Sabe is the title of this email. Oh, Venture Dog's ready to have a nap. Must have been a delicious bone this morning, huh? Alright. Thought we were going to get silence, but now my neighbor has fired up his backhoe and I can see it through the forest. No big deal. Here we go. Steve, thank you for helping people to cope with the trauma of their experiences. I'm an exorcist. Yes, a real demon casting out physically and spiritually battling warrior. Wow. And the first one to contact us. I have counseled satanic ritual abuse survivors in my years. My first encounters with demons were at 10 years old. My dad unknowingly moved us into a house with many of them. It was my first experience with fear paralysis. I soon figured out the demons were holding me down and freezing me. The bedroom turned into an icebox with me seeing my breath. There were little 2-foot-tall green demons I would later learn named, I don't even know if I want to say their name. It's Ammon. How's that? After we moved out of the house, it has been mostly vacant for 60 years. Nobody stays long. The Catholic exorcist refused to even go into that house, let alone attempt an exorcism. Those years are a book in themselves. I'm giving you this information to help you understand what I'm going to tell you here. Just like you know the smell of a skunk instantly, I know the presence of demons. It goes with the turf, trust me. They hate me and tell me so. All of my life I've been banned from forests. As soon as I enter one, I'm told by mind speak to get out. If I don't, a poisonous snake or a larger predator will soon confront me. On my ranch in California, I went to check out noise from my barn at 2 a.m. My large, not so nice dogs went with me. They fear nothing. I heard movement behind my barn. Went down next to a stand of huge eucalyptus trees to investigate, and I looked up to see my dog standing by the barn up the hill, 50 feet away. I said, "Come here, you two," and they didn't budge. I had my back to a huge tree at that moment. Then I felt it. That demonic spirit was right behind the tree. My dogs weren't looking at me, they were looking at Sabe. And they took off like shots. Then I was told in mind speak, "Go back to the house now." I didn't even look back, I left. And let me fill in the blanks to the point now. I knew it was Sabe because they stripped my fruit trees every spring. They would silence the creek. They would silence the creek and grove's wildlife at about 11 p.m. most nights, with my dogs running into their beds in the garage, shaking many nights. I knew the sheriffs were getting calls for illegals disappearing along the smuggling route through the hills below me. I also knew for these coyote smugglers to go to the police in sheer terror, or abandon a high-profit group and run. Took some kind of terror to face the cartels empty-handed. This is when I watched the truth about hunting Sabe right on my ranch. Camp Pendleton Marine Base was 9 miles down the canyon from my ranch. Watching a Bigfoot channel, I listened to the report of 2 Marines there who came face to face with a 10-foot sabe while patrolling the rear of the base, a week before my education came full circle. My sheriff friend came to our ranch, as he often did, with questions about the disappearing illegals. He was casual about it, but I could tell it was all business. The next day I returned to my barn to get some tools for one of my crews at about 9 a.m. There were 5 vans bringing 6 sheriff officers each, in full military tactical battle dress, armed with high-caliber automatic weapons. There was the alleged DEA chopper, all black with no markings, with FLIR and night vision circling above. I knew the pilot as he landed on my ranch before to talk with the sheriff, so I was aware of his capabilities. This is sounding interesting, isn't it? I asked what was going on. I was told they were going to bust a pot grow below the ranch next to mine down by the creek, which made no sense as I knew the 2 ranches between me and the creek and all avocado trees and no place to hide or grow. I was told to leave for a couple hours at least. Not nicely either. In the next few weeks, I noticed there was no silencing of the creek wildlife at night. My dogs strayed out most of the night, not running home shaking, and my now ripe with fruit trees weren't being stripped. They were never stripped again. We actually had small wildlife return, and not so welcome mountain lions became common on our ranches. Now, why do they kill sabe? Because sabe are the descendants of the Nephilim. They are part of the list of things the evil bastards want to hide that prove the Bible is 100% true, and it is. I know from experience. Why do you think they have gone after those trying to get the DNA profile proven so hard? They know exactly what sabe is. They have harvested them for decades. Telling you how I know that would likely get us both killed. What? Let me read that again. They know exactly what sabe is. They have harvested them for decades. Telling you how I know that would likely get us both killed. I'm not scared to death, man. Bring it. Tell me. Tell me it all. I do not fear death. Period. They know there is no father's DNA to be found because the progenitors of the race were angels before mating with women. Think about it. How is there no male DNA? It's impossible in mammals, period. Unfortunately, all these dumbass researchers have put crosshairs on sabe's back, chasing them around and trying to photograph them, since the Patterson film. Prior to that, they stayed hid and were stealth enough to preserve themselves. Now they're unable to hide from satellites, FLIR equipment, aircraft, and sonic listening devices. Once located, the military casts a perimeter around them and closes in with sonic weapons to drive them where they want, to an ambush. In the U.S., between these greedy researchers and Dave P's information, the public is drawing the conclusion not only is sabe real, he's a serial killer and eats people in our national parks. Lastly, my friend lived on Mount St. Helen, moving a year before it blew. He can tell you there was no shortage of sabe on the mountain. His acreage had several. He also told me there were many dead sabe collected after the eruption, in various states of condition. Supposedly, a Sasquatch helped the soldiers find them in caves to have the humans tend to the burned, yet alive ones. He was also told they shot many of them as they were so badly burned. Excuse me. Steve, pay attention closely. I can assure you, if you get too close, they will kill you. I've been threatened by the highest military power in our country before. They are serious. When they say shut up, they mean it. My grandfather was naval intelligence. We all knew where the line was, thanks to him. If you got this email, I'm surprised. They've blocked me emailing you since you began. God bless you and Sarah and protect you. The whole spiritual realm is real. The war is real. The evil bastards are real. And Jesus lives for sure. Signed, no name, for both of our safety. So they said, when they say shut up, they mean it. So what are you doing emailing me then? And I'm just thinking rationally, so you told me that you're scared of them. If you told me these truths, they would kill you and me, and they also told you to shut up and they mean it, but you still email me. So which one is it? Are you too scared or are you not too scared? Right? Your email made it through. There's not really much there that we haven't heard in the past. There's absolutely no proof of what you say. Right? I'm just saying. You're making bold statements. I'm making bold statements back, what I'm reading and what I'm hearing. And then the DNA, the male side is unknown. So that means there is DNA, but it's unknown. And then we have the European scientists who contacted me that said one of the items in the male side of the DNA, they said, was, and they're arguing amongst themselves, if part of the male DNA is either existing brown bear or a grizzly bear or an extinct type of bear. And what they're arguing about now is which bear is it? They don't know. And that's only one part. And they also said that amongst other items in the male DNA is an item that is absolutely unknown. So, that's a little different than bold statement. There is no male DNA. Well, what are they looking at? If they're not bullshitting, what are they looking at then? All right? I mean, we have all come a long way here listening to people's testimonies, and we look for patterns, and we go with our gut instinct, right? How do I know you're not some government agent trying to infiltrate the group and steer us away, mislead us, plant little stupid seeds? You never know. That could be possible too, right? I mean, after all, we are all here together listening to people email us from all around the globe nonstop. And our guts, I'm encouraging everybody else. My gut does everything from there on in. Nobody tells me what to or not to accept as fact. Nobody. I listen to everybody. I listen to everybody. That's the key. I listen to everyone. I look for patterns. I see what fits with my own experiences. And then my gut does the rest. End of story. But my gut can't do shit without hearing from all of the family here, right? The family in the community, meaning the world. So, also, it has come to light. I tried bringing it up previously, and I put links to the video of survivors of the global elite absolute animals who are raising and training children to be sex slaves, right? That's a fact. There's no looking away. And the FBI came forward with 357,000 children missing just in 2022. All right, so then I started looking into the population, and I know a lot of you are probably familiar with the city of Vancouver, right? Coastal city, just like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. And it's busted up into different areas, right? You got Burnaby, Richmond, Delta, Surrey, Abbotsford, different cities, but they're all basically next door to each other, so it seems a lot larger when you look at it in space. But the city of Vancouver, dead center. The population is over 600,000 people. That means half of the city of Vancouver has vanished. Over half of the current population of the city of Vancouver has vanished. And nobody knows where they went. Nobody knows. Oh, and they're only children too. But nobody knows. Nobody knows where those 357,000 plus children have gone. That's over half the population of the city of Vancouver. Just in North America. I believe just in the States. So, like I mentioned this earlier, how does that fly under the radar? How does that fly under the radar? There's only one way that flies under the radar, and that is if you operate and control the radar. That's the only way. that makes the people who run the radar on watching over everybody guilty as F. Right? Why do I bring that up? Because this person who's emailed us allegedly says, well, the Sasquatch are killing humans and eating them in the parks. Well, meanwhile, Dave Plias has said flat out he's never come across a researcher that was harmed by a Sasquatch ever. Ever. And there's no evidence of them eating human beings so far to date. So, why would possibly somebody be emailing us and trying to tell us that these hairy upright beings are responsible for killing and eating human beings when there's no proof? And people who have absolutely researched the topic have come up with the same conclusion. And at the same time, when I get somebody like this person or others who claim to have such contacts with the government, the military, the helicopter pilot with the FLIR and all this other shit, and they're raising this alarm about the Sabe and the national parks killing people and eating them, you got to be careful. If you're that concerned and you know what's up, then how come you didn't mention anything about the 357,000 children that are missing right now? Which topic would be more important to somebody who's connected and know what's going on? Do you see what I'm getting at? Are we do we possibly have somebody just email us to try to steer us in a certain direction? Maybe. But when you start, you got to look at a broader picture, right? Yeah, they're calling in the military because illegals are going missing and they're concerned about it. They got to save their asses. Really? Well, there's 357,000 children have gone missing, and it's all dead flatline silence about that. But they're pulling in the cavalry to save some illegal people running through the desert? That doesn't make sense either, does it? Unless the radar that's watching the kids disappear, the people who are in control of the radar are in control of the cavalry sent out to figure out what's going on with these missing illegals. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of shit that doesn't mesh up when it comes to information being shared with the population. Over half of the population of the city of Vancouver has vanished in the United States, and it's children. And it's not being posted on mainstream news all over the shop. It's not on every single screen you can see in North America as it should be, but it's not. What's that tell you guys? What does it tell you? Seriously. What's it telling you? Right? I guarantee you, if even one child, I don't know, we'll throw a number. If 3 children went missing on my property, what do you think that would bring to the TV screens today? What do you think how much attention do you think that would get if 3 children went missing on my property? Think about it. What kind of attention would that get? I'm pretty sure my property would look like some overgrown gophers were digging holes all over it. The street would be lined with newspapers and cameras. My face would be all over the frickin' internet, with only maybe 2 or 3 kids or even one going missing on my property. Right? But now you got 357,000 gone missing. And nothing. Right? Anyway, that's probably enough babbling for this morning. I just got the text from the big boss. I got to go in the house, so I'll leave you guys with those thoughts. Think about it. Talk about it out loud. And hopefully, once I get my internet back, I'm going to share emails, and we are going to sit together and watch this video from this independent journalist, highly respected European woman, not a North American, and we're going to listen to her knowledge and what she has to share about the WAR, because every single thing is tangled in together. It is. And we're going to sit and watch it together. I don't give a shit what your stance is on who started it, who's the culprit, who's guilty. I don't give a flying F. I just would like everybody to pull up their big boy and big girl pants and sit down and listen to somebody speak. All right? Because I know for a fact there is a lot of people here that are absolutely won over, have been won over, and are being misled, and they're repeating shit that is not true. Alright, I better shut up. I'm getting a little fired up about a bunch of shit right now, right? I'm getting fired up about a bunch of shit, but it's shit that needs to be spoken about. Now! Share my story, howtohunt.com. Get it to me. Sarah's decals are still available, I believe. I haven't asked her lately. Everybody's busier than shit. Hold on a minute. Shit, I gotta go. Gotta go. Oh, I'll be back. Guarantee that. I'll be back. Bubs.